Some of the talk yesterday was around places like South Korea, and I've actually, we had a school in South Korea. And the thing that makes the difference in South Korea, and they were talking about that, the teachers being from the top 33% of the graduate cohort, I think it's the way that...
명문대학교라 하면 여러분들은 어떤 대학교가 가장 먼저 떠오르시나요? 이번 영상은 미국 명문대학교 스탠퍼드 대학에서 학생들이 좋은 교육을 받을 수 있도록 학교와 교사들에게 어떤 지원이 필요한지, 그리고 교사들은 어떤 방향으로 노력해야 할지에 대해 토론하는 강의 영상을 여러분에게 소개하려 합니다.
So when you think about that high school student who cannot name a teacher that is a favorite teacher, they're lacking what you described. And there's a difference we've been discussing as a group between an adult who's a caring role model, someone who may be attentive, a good listener, and actually somebody who can care for you not only as the person who you are, but also as an intellectual and as somebody who's developing a set of skills, a set of lenses through which to think, and to press and push you through challenging, high expectations that at the end of the day will help you to grow and become a more fulfilled individual and contributor to society. So thank you for taking that moment to reflect on that. And I'll turn now to our panelists to talk a little bit more about what their connection to teaching is and what brings them here today.
Well, first to explain that Connections Education operates Connections Academy schools, which are primarily public schools, but we call them virtual schools. I also want to mention that my mother was a teacher, 5th grade, and I noticed that was a theme through many of our panelists, but I had one challenging event, which was my school was so small, I had my mother as my 5th grade teacher. And let me just tell you, when you want to talk about demanding, it was a very interesting experience, but she's been a great inspiration to me, and I'm very happy to be here to talk about teaching.
Thank you.
소개가 끝나자 다음 차례에는 선생님 출신이 아닌 패널이 있어 어떤 자격으로 참석한 건지 궁금해하는데요.
Well, I've never been a teacher. For us, our organization, our own private schools around the world, in China, Middle East and Europe. And we also run school improvement programs for governments around the world in the UK, Middle East, and in Asia, and employ something like 2,000 teachers. So unless the teachers in our organization are engaged and successful, then we're going to fail as an organization. So it's absolutely imperative for us that our teachers are effective and doing a fantastic job, because that's what helps us to thrive.
Thank you. Kelly?
For me, I really had no intention initially of going into teaching. My parents had wanted me to be a lawyer, and that was the path that I was on. And had my LSAT taken, had my applications ready to go. In my senior year of volunteered at a brand new charter school that had just been established. And so I started tutoring in a 7th grade advisory classroom and an 8th grade US history classroom, and saw the incredible nature of this school and the transformative work that a teacher can do. And realized that if I wanted to have an immediate and very important impact on the future of our country and the future of our society, that it was through teaching that I could do this most effectively. And so I went on to Stanford, received my credential and master's, and then went back and just really feel incredibly blessed to be able to work with the students that I work with and see lives transformed on a daily basis.
I've been involved with teachers and teaching at all levels for more than 50 years, which can only be said by someone who was grown old ever so gracefully.
패널들의 소개가 끝나고 진행자도 자신이 선생님이 된 이유에 대해 이야기를 꺼냈습니다.
Volunteering at East Palo Alto Elementary School while a freshman here at Stanford. And one of the children said, "Will you please be my teacher?" Because she didn't have one that cared about her or would ask of her what she needed. So from that very moment, I said, yes, I'll be your teacher, because the need is so great. And I had had such a privilege myself of excellent teachers in the public system, a mother who was also a teacher and currently is a teacher. And it is, as Lee mentioned, and as Kelly knows in the day-to-day, one of the most demanding, most rewarding callings there is. So I'm very glad to be here and to share some thoughts and ideas in
진행자의 소개도 끝나고 토론을 시작하는데요.
And there's been, in the parlance of public debate in the United States, a real frame of thinking where if we just got rid of the worst teachers, whether it's 10% or 25%, then we would advance student outcomes by whatever percent. And if you have 3 million teachers in the United States, and I don't know what the worldwide number is, if you take the 10% out, and let's assume that you have fair processes through which to do that, do you have sort of the pipeline to ensure that you've got enough teachers who are going to do a good enough job, or that you, I think the answer is there just aren't enough people that are going to fill those seats currently with spectacular credentials that will do the kind of work that's necessary. And so this investment in the current teachers that we have, with some attention to addressing people who are incompetent and not worthy of growth, or not demonstrating growth, not that they're not worthy, presents an interesting and challenging dilemma for us. So when I think about how we recruit teachers, there's been a lot of criticism in the United States about how we recruit teachers and the lack of standards that we hold compared to other countries that are advancing their work exponentially. What are some of the things that you think we need to do to recruit and retain?
I think some of the talk yesterday was around places like South Korea, and I've actually we had a school in South Korea, and the thing that makes the difference in South Korea, and they were talking about the teachers being from the top 33% of the graduate cohort. I think it's the way that education is thought of in these places, as opposed to, I can't use the US as an example, I can use the UK as an example, and education is just not as highly valued in the UK as it is in Southeast Asia. Now, that may be because Southeast Asia knows that they need to invest in human capital above the UK and the US in order to catch up, but for whatever reason, and there are many social and economic factors driving it, education is valued more highly in these places. So that means parents value it more highly, that means that students value it more highly, and that means that for the teachers to come in, they're going to be feeling like they're going to be doing a job that's right at the top of society, so that the teacher in Korea is an absolutely revered individual. And the way that people think about teachers in Korea, we had to put teachers' CVs on our website. Okay, so teachers' CV. If we didn't have teachers' CVs on our website, no one had come to the school. So the parents just demanded that the teachers were going to be fantastic, and there was a culture of creating fantastic teachers in that country. So it's an observation more than a solution.
I think it's also imperative that we treat teachers like professionals, that out of the 3 million teachers in the United States, for instance, there may be 10% that would be deemed poor quality, but that means there's 90% that are very good and are doing incredible work in their classrooms.
미국에서도 교사를 전문가로 대해야 한다며 자신의 이야기와 함께 의견을 말하기 시작했습니다.
And what I find so interesting about the teaching profession is that you go to conferences such as this one where there's a lot of talk about teaching, and yet there are no teachers. And you would never go to a medical conference, or you would never go to a conference about law and not have lawyers or doctors that were present. And so I think it's so important that we include the teacher's voice in these conversations, because simply good teachers aren't going to stay in the profession if we don't feel that our voice is part of the conversation. Because we have something very, very important to add, in that we are the daily practitioners. We are doing the day-to-day research in our classrooms around what it takes to help students excel. And to get the best and the brightest, they have to know that they are entering a profession where they're going to be treated as much like a professional as if they were to enter medicine or to enter law, because that is what they're competing against. And I know for me, as someone who was on the law school track, what made the difference was working at a school and at a system that treated me like a professional and that really valued what I was bringing to the table. And I look at what I do every day as very much a partnership.
Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's ironic, Jeanette, that we're in a session here co-sponsored by Goldman Sachs, part of an industry that is generally ascribed responsibility for one of the worst global economic disasters the world has ever encountered, namely the economic disaster we've just encountered. And I've never heard anybody suggest that it could have been avoided by simply getting rid of the bottom 10% of people working in banking. No, I'm not denying that there are people who shouldn't be teaching. There are people who shouldn't be practicing law or medicine or banking, and a lot of other professions shouldn't be parenting as well. But the response has been there's something more systemic. It has to do with a culture of respect, with a system of reward and recognition, to a predictable economic trajectory personally that sometimes is scary, and with in a profession where every year, if you're a public school teacher, you can get a pink slip telling you you're not going to have a job next year. I mean, there are a whole bunch of conditions there that simply have to be addressed, or we will never get to where Singapore or South Korea or Shanghai is with regard to these kinds of effects.
오늘은 교육 관련 전문가들과 함께 학생들의 교육과 선생님에 대해 토론하는 시간을 가졌습니다. 세계적인 명문대 스탠퍼드 대학교에서 교육에 대한 토론을 하다가 한국을 예로 들며 한국인들은 교육을 중요시한다며 이런 부분을 어쩌면 미국과 영국이 배워야 한다는 의견도 들을 수 있었습니다. 다른 전문가는 이 의견에 대해 동의하기도 하고 반대 의견을 주고받으며 많은 것들을 배우고 깨닫기도 하였답니다. 여러분들은 어떻게 보셨나요? 오늘의 영상은 여기까지입니다. 시청해주셔서 정말 감사합니다.